Hello and welcome to the weekly English practice from English Coaching Projects. This week's topic is about reading. Now, if you don't like reading, you can go away now if you want. Is anybody still there? Great. So now we're going to talk about reading, and we're going to talk about reading science fiction. Now, is anybody still there? Hello? Yeah? Because normally when you mention reading, some people say, I don't read. And when you mention science fiction, everybody disappears. And I'm left by myself. But I'm here to tell you why reading science fiction is perhaps the best thing you can do, and why science fiction as a genre is so important. This week's article will try and persuade you to read science fiction. I'll try to persuade you why it's so innovative, so interesting, and full of absolutely fantastic literature. And in this introductory video, I'm going to do that by showing you 5 fantastic books to read as a science fiction beginner. Let's get going. So the first book is called Recalled to Life by Robert Silverberg. This is a very short book written in 1958, and is an absolutely fantastic example of how science fiction just takes an idea from science and writes a story about it. In this case, about the invention of a resurrection technology that allows people to be revived after dying, but only a short period of time. For example, 3 days. Does that sound familiar? Well, this is full of moral questions, ethics, religion, science, and it's really short, and I totally recommend it. In fact, ECP coach John recommended this to me a while back. It's a great read. The second book I'm going to recommend is by Octavia E. Butler, and it's called Kindred. Octavia E. Butler is a groundbreaking American author, perhaps one of the most important American authors of the 20th century. This book takes time traveling and uses it to explore American history, and in particular slavery and its legacy. It's very, very well written. It's a very powerful message. This is superb literature, and it's really, really moving. None of the first 2 books include any spaceships or space or planets or galaxies. The next one starts to take us into space. Beggars in Spain by Nancy Kress. This novel explores the idea of improving humanity. What if we could not sleep and be more intelligent and have that competitive advantage over other people? This book explores that idea and the changes that would happen in society, and perhaps the rejection of these new kinds of people. It's fascinating. It starts on Earth and begins to take us out into space. Read it. The 4th and 5th books are much more what people think of as science fiction. They take part in different galaxies on different planets with spaceships and battles. But I think after reading those first 3, you'll be ready for these. The 4th book is by Ian M. Banks and is called The Player of Games. Ian M. Banks is a Scottish writer who also wrote normal fiction, but nothing he wrote was normal. If you like chess or games and challenges, this is a fantastic book to read. It takes part in the author's culture universe, where he describes an advanced society that is run by artificial intelligence machines purely for the benefit of the humans. They're not humans, but the races that live within this universe. This is talking about interfering in other supposedly inferior societies. Is that good? Should we do that? It's not very clear here who are the good guys and the bad guys. And finally, the 5th book is by another British author, Peter F. Hamilton. And this is where you can see science fiction really taking off. Earth, AD 2329. Humanity has colonized over 400 planets, all interlinked by wormholes. For the first time in mankind's history, there is peace. And then it all goes terribly, terribly wrong. Peter F. Hamilton writes some amazingly exciting books. You just start turning the pages and you can't put the book down. If you liked those other science fiction books, you're going to love this. Thank you for watching. I hope that inspires you to start reading some science fiction. Read this week's article, listen to it, and then at the end you have some questions. Look at the questions, discuss the questions with your family, friends and colleagues at ECP, and then write your answers in an email, or you can dictate your answers into WhatsApp and send them directly to your coach. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great week. Enjoy reading. Have fun. Bye. Don't like science fiction? This will change your mind. ECP coach Rob is fed up of not being able to talk about science fiction with his colleagues and students. In this article, he will show you why it's the best genre of all. During last year's lockdown, I made two great discoveries. The first was my balcony, and the second was a YouTube channel called Media Death Cult, an admittedly strange name for a book review channel. I was enticed into this cult by a series of top 10 sci-fi books videos, and my newly cleaned balcony soon became my science fiction reading nest. A little background story is perhaps in order here. Ever since my older sisters let me read their copy of Stephen Donaldson's trilogy, The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, I've been an avid reader of books that really allow your imagination to fly. I initially read fantasy, The Lord of the Rings, etc., but soon switched to sci-fi, and everyone has been calling me a geek ever since. It is my strongly held conviction that I've read some of the greatest works of 20th century literature and that everyone else is missing out on these gems. If you've never read The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell, you should. It's one of the most beautiful and moving studies of the human condition ever written. The fact that it's a first contact story that takes place in space is irrelevant. But as soon as I try to engage someone in a conversation about the genre you are missing out on, their eyes glaze over and I have to give up. This annoys me because I often have long and absorbing conversations about science fiction films and TV series. The Handmaid's Tale, E.T., Black Mirror, Back to the Future, Lost, Rick and Morty, the Marvel films, Inception, Men in Black, to name just a few. Star Wars, for goodness sake. But for decades, the honourable genre of science fiction has been sidelined as trashy, childish, and above all, it's dismissed as not being serious literature. It seems that as soon as you mention space, aliens or time travel, you have voluntarily removed yourself from proper writing and entered exile in a parallel universe reserved for failed writers. So why should anyone take science fiction novels seriously? Firstly, sci-fi writers tackle serious issues that affect our daily lives. Gender inequality, racism, religion, war, relationships, and the climate are just a few examples that benefit from the detached view of a writer who is not constrained by the real world. Science and its corresponding technological developments drives change in society. This special genre explores those potential changes while considering the perennial questions that touch our hearts and minds on a daily basis. Authors can examine controversial topics more freely and perhaps more deeply, without fear of retributions from interest groups. Secondly, preferring to write in a non-standard genre doesn't make you a worse writer. The prose in books by authors such as David Mitchell, Audrey Niffenegger, Ian M. Banks, and Octavia E. Butler can be breathtaking and extraordinarily moving. It stays with you long after you reluctantly turn the last page. Thirdly, good science fiction extrapolates ideas and concepts from real science and puts them at the service of a good story. Blade Runner, for example, based on Philip K. Dick's short story Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, is an intriguing detective story at heart that, while solving the classic whodunit, discusses the implications of creating artificial intelligence and how that will intersect with our very human instincts of possession and love. In the end, it's a captivating love story. So, why not take the plunge? There's a whole universe out there waiting for you and your beautiful mind. Go explore. And here are this week's questions. Do you read science fiction books? Why? Why not? What sci-fi films or TV series have you seen? Describe a couple of them. Do you think beautiful and moving stories can happen in space or with aliens? What 3 reasons does Rob give for taking the genre of science fiction seriously? Apart from science, what other factors drive change in society? What books do you enjoy reading? Recommend some.